So we're going to dive into a story about finding really profound meaning in the most overlooked corners of a city. Our guide here is a narrator who can't sleep, and on his aimless nightly walks, he stumbles upon this one building, a building that holds more history than anyone could ever imagine. And, it all kicks off with an unfinished mystery.
This right here, this is the fragment that starts it all. It's from an old water-damaged encyclopedia he found, just a half sentence about light literally eaten away by silverfish. A negotiation between what? This single unfinished thought just hangs over everything, and it's what pushes him to start searching for answers in the city's forgotten spaces.
And that search for an answer, well, it leads him here. During one of his walks, this totally ordinary apartment building, one he's probably passed 100 times, suddenly just separates itself from the scenery and grabs his full attention. See, this wasn't like discovering something new. The building was always there. But in this one moment, it became distinct, significant. It's kind of like when you stare at a word for too long, right? And it just detaches from its meaning and becomes this weird shape. Well, the building had become that shape. And suddenly, it was just full of potential. And its story begins back in 1929, literally right before the big financial collapse. It was born out of this hopeful but, really fragile idea that good architecture, just the right arrangement of light and rooms, could literally save humanity from itself. What a beautiful, almost heartbreaking idea. Okay, so now we're going to go inside because this is where the building really starts to tell its story. We find out that the structure isn't just stone and wood. It's a living record of every single life it has ever held.
The staircase, it becomes this incredible symbol. Every person who ever walked these stairs, a child running to school in 1931, a woman carrying groceries in 1974, they all left a tiny trace. The stone literally remembers. It's a negative monument, shaped not by some famous sculpture, but by the simple, repeated act of living.
But how do you even grasp that amount of time? How do you make it feel real? Well, one resident actually did the math. She figured it would take over 12 million footsteps to wear the stone down that much. And just like that, 90 years of anonymous lives become a concrete, almost overwhelming number. And you see the same idea in the building's hidden spaces, like its inner courtyard. It's filled with forgotten stuff, a rusty bike, a warped bench. The narrator calls it an archive of the inconsequential. And that really matters, because unlike official history, these details haven't been edited, they haven't been revised, they just exist, telling the raw, unvarnished truth of daily life. So on the 4th floor, this whole idea of the building as an archive becomes a living, breathing practice. The narrator finds something that changes everything. He meets a woman, Edita Steinová, who's working on one of the most radical projects you can imagine. Just imagine walking into this. Her apartment isn't a home. It's a living manuscript. Every single wall is just covered in sheets of paper, notes, thoughts, diagrams. It's as if the entire history of the building and the mind that's trying to capture it has been turned inside out for everyone to see. She calls her life's work the account, and her goal is to record everything that has ever happened in this building. Not just the big stuff, but every little detail, every fleeting moment, without ever deciding what's important and what isn't. And this is really the core of her whole philosophy. See, traditional history picks a story and then throws away everything that doesn't fit. But for Edita, that act of throwing things away, she sees it as a form of violence. She believes the point isn't to tell one neat, clean story. The point is to honor the sheer messiness of reality by trying to capture all of it, even though she knows it's impossible. The attempt itself is the work. But, okay. How does a massive, abstract project like that even work in the real world? Well, Edita makes it concrete by zeroing in on a single apartment and the story of its very first tenants. Every building really has at least 2 floor plans. Over on the left, you've got the architect's plan. Kitchen, bedroom, living room, functional labels. But on the right, that's the plan drawn by life itself. The spaces get renamed by what actually happened there. The room of the unsent letter, the corner where the child stood. This is the real map of a home. And sometimes history doesn't just creep in, it arrives with terrifying speed. Edita finds a diary hidden inside a wall, written by Maria Kowalski, one of the first people to live here. This entry from 1938 captures that chilling moment the world changes right outside her window. And because she was a geometry teacher, her eye catches this one specific detail, the wrong angles of the new symbols on the flags. It's such a personal, haunting observation of this encroaching horror. The family's story follows this brutal, simple arc. They move into their brand new home, full of hope, in 1929. 9 years later, history arrives at their door. 4 years after that, they're gone. The timeline is just stark and devastating. And this brings us to a really difficult, devastating realization. The building itself is neutral. The very same walls that sheltered the Kowalski family also sheltered the soldiers who came to take them away. The stairs carried them all. It's the cruel indifference of architecture. It serves the life it was meant to hold, and it serves the force that comes to destroy it with no judgment at all. To really grasp the depth of this tragedy, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, to the man who designed the building, Rudolf Kessler, and the incredible hope that it was born from. See, Kessler was part of that post-World War I generation of architects who truly believed they could design a better future. For him, a building wasn't just a structure. It was a moral statement. It was a physical theory for how humanity could live in peace, a theory you could actually walk into and live inside. And he literally encoded these values right onto the front of the building. He had these 6 ceramic tiles of birds carved near the entrance, and each one represented a virtue for the people living there. Swallow for speed, owl for wisdom, and so on. But look at that last one, the crow. The meaning for the crow has been completely lost to time, blurred out by a simple water stain on Kessler's original notes. It's the building's own unfinished fragment, isn't it? A perfect parallel to the one that started our narrator's entire journey. So what do you think it stood for? Memory? Maybe cunning? Grief? The building just leaves us with a question. And this is the tragic irony of Kessler's life. This building was his masterpiece, his one great statement of hope. After this, he spent decades drafting the soulless, pragmatic housing blocks he absolutely hated. And where did he die? Right here, in this apartment, in the very building that stood for his purest, unfulfilled dream. You know, in the end, this whole story is really just an invitation to look a little closer, to see the staircases and the courtyards and the walls all around us, not just as structures, but as archives. So the question it leaves us with is this: what stories, what forgotten histories are hiding in the plain sight of your own world?